In episode 235 of the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast, we speak to health and fitness expert Chris Gooden, and he's going to tell you how you, despite your chaotic schedule, can be lean and fit. It's all about health and fitness today. Are you ready for this, folks? All right, let's do it. Welcome one, welcome all to the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast, a weekly podcast series dedicated to helping you hit peak performance across the three domains of leadership. Those being leading yourself, leading your team, and leading your organization. This podcast couples my 20 years of military experience as a senior Canadian Army officer with world-class guests to bring you the most complete podcast of leadership going. And for more, feel free to check out our website at movingforwardleadership.com. And with that, let's get to the show. Yes, welcome one, welcome all to the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast. It is your Chief Leadership Officer, Scott McCarthy, and thanks for coming out to the show and checking us out because you know what? It's great having you here. You're the reason why I do this podcast week in, week out. And without you, I'd be on a lonely journey, wouldn't I? Anyway, today we are speaking about health and fitness. And I got this inspiration because this month at the Leader Growth Mastermind, we're actually talking about leader self-care and how we take care of ourselves as leader. And that's the topic of conversation that we're going in on our weekly calls with. And I thought, wow, what a great time to pair a health and fitness expert like Chris to the content that we're discussing in the mastermind this month. So this is it. This is why we got Chris here on the show this week. He is a health and fitness expert. He's been in the industry for well over 20-ish years now. And, you know, the thing I love about Chris, and full on disclaimer, I'm actually a client of Chris. I get my workout schedule and routine from him. But what I love about him is he's realistic. He's a father. He's a worker. He's a husband. He has his own business. He has so much going on. He fully understands our lives, and he understands your life as a busy leader. Because no doubt, you know, you have your day job, you have your free time that you want to do some hobbies, you want to do some different things. Maybe you have a partner, maybe you have a spouse, you could have children. You know, you have all of these different things pulling in all kinds of different directions, but yet health and fitness is crucial, not only just to our day-to-day, work lives, but our entire life. So this is why I got Chris on the show with us today. And we talk about all kinds of different topics, which is super important to you, like how to find the time to prioritize your health and fitness, how to start creating habits which will enable success, not diminish your success, why sleep is so crucial to peak performance. And here we are talking about leading ourselves, right? How water impacts our daily lives, the importance of protein, some tips and tricks for you just to start living a healthier life. And you go, man, I just don't know where to start. Well, we are going to talk about that today amongst many, many other things. So this show is one you definitely want to stay tuned. And if the mastermind piqued your interest, feel free to check out our website, leaddon'tboss.com/mastermind, and that'll bring you to the landing page where you could check it out. And if you want to, even sign up. We have weekly group calls where we get together and discuss leadership topics that are near and dear to our heart. We have weekly curated content, a full platform that is away from all the social media, and so much more. So again, if that is something that you're interested in, please check out leaddon'tboss.com/mastermind. And I love to see you there. All right, that's enough of the intro. So why don't you sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Chris Gooden all about leader self-care. Chris Gooden, my man, welcome to the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast, brother. Good to have you here.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me, Scott.
Al, I've been meaning to get someone on the show to talk about health and fitness and leader self-care and all those good things for a while again now, because it's been a while since I've touched that topic, sadly. So I was like, hey, who better to talk about it than the man who's busting my butt pretty much every day as it is.
Heck yeah, man. I love doing it, right?
For you to listen out there, obviously not video. Chris is like fist pumping right now. He's all pumped. So obviously, disclaimer: I am a client of Chris's. I'll throw that right at the beginning. But that being said, I'm a client of Chris's for one damn good reason. Because what he says works. So let's dive in. First thing out of the gate, my man. For leaders out there, I don't even want to touch health and fitness out of the gate, because the leader out there right now is like, oh, great, something else to put on my plate. I got a family, I got a spouse, I got a team, I got a business, I got whatever it is that they're leading right now, and they're like, something else for me to put on my plate. Like, come on. So from your standpoint, what's the best way for them to, one, kind of feel like they have the ability, but two, more importantly, the time to actually get going on this and start actually taking care of themselves better?
It's such a good question, right? I mean, leaders, everybody's pulling on them. Everybody's pulling on them, no matter where you are, at work, at home, spouse, friends, coworkers, team members, everybody's pulling on you. Adding something else to the plate is one of the worst things you can do, because then you just start piling up and it gets deeper, and then you end up stressing yourself out. So one of the first things that we have to do is realize that you can't do it all. And it's okay to give yourself a little bit of grace. I mean, Superman is awesome. My personal favorite is Captain America, but they are fictional. And we can't be everything to everyone. So we've got to give ourselves grace, but we also have to realize that 20, 30, 40, 50 years plus from now, you're still going to hopefully be around, or at least interacting with your family, your spouse, in one of those time periods, right? We want to at least understand that our health is going to matter a lot more as we age. So if we can start some kind of roadmap, some kind of strategy now, you're going to reap the benefits later.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't disagree. And, from my standpoint, it's about prioritizing your time, right? And looking at it and saying, okay, what can I take out? Because I like your point. You don't have to do it all. I certainly don't do it all, although I try very, very poorly at times. And then I realize, like, oh, I'm trying to do too much. So it's kind of like take an inventory of your time and say, okay, what can I get rid of? Because you got to look at it from a prioritization standpoint, right?
100%. I mean, hopefully no one that's listening to this has been on an airplane that's going down, but we've all been, or most of us have been on an airplane, or at least know the scenario, right? You're sitting there, the flight attendant is going through the checklist, and they remind you, you've got to secure your mask before you help anybody else's. Now, anybody, if it's a parent, we're like, wait, what? No, we're going to secure. No, we've got to secure ours first, so that we can be in control of ourselves. So yeah, prioritizing is huge, and understanding that, if we get into this realm of we have to work out, or we have to prioritize going to the gym or whatever that means. We don't have to go 8 days a week for 25 hours a day. We have to prioritize, but we have to be very, very strategic about what we're doing. As leaders, you wouldn't in your career, in your job, working with a team member, you would not just throw something against a wall and hope that it worked. You would be very strategic with how you plan and prioritize different steps along the way, different steps along the journey to get to where you want to be. We've got to do that with health and wellness too. We can't do it all at one time.
That's actually a great dovetail. And by the way, I want to say I love the airplane analogy. You know, you put your mask on first because if you don't, you're going to pass out. And that's basically, you know, what I refer to here at the podcast is leading yourself, right? You got to lead yourself. You got to be able to take care of yourself. Now you're talking about, you know, the steps to a strategy, defining the time and building. So from a health and fitness standpoint, how's that, you know, what's that going to look like for the leader out there? Like, okay, fine. Yes, acknowledge I need to do something. I got it, but I don't know where to start. Well, where should they start and where should they go moving forward from there?
100%. Great question. So think about when you learn something. Think about when you're onboarding a new member to your team, right? You're not going to throw everything at them at once. You're going to prioritize and create a step-by-step plan. We do the same thing. We have to create habits because habits are going to drive the success. If you look at anybody who is successful in any endeavor, they've created habits to get to where they are. One of my habits is brushing my teeth every day. That's a habit that I've gotten into. And because of that, you know, that's helped my overall health. And I think most of us probably brush our teeth a couple of times a day, or at least once. That's a habit. So when we think about health and wellness, a lot of times the first thing that comes to mind is, you know, getting in the gym or going for a walk or getting down on the ground and doing some push-ups. 9 times out of 10, that's not where I start with any of my clients. We start with 3 basic principles, and we nail these habits first, and we nail them one at a time. That's the other big thing. We want to do one of these and get to where we're doing them so well. We're doing them perfect. The first 3 in order, I mean, and you can kind of go out of order if you want to, but this is what I would do, and this is what I recommend. Number 1 is sleep. Now, I know leaders, look, it's hard to get a lot of sleep. So we don't look at quantity as much as we look at quality, right? Now, for demonstration purposes, I've got my phone here. And a lot of us, guilty, I'm going to sleep. I'm laying in bed and I've got my phone right up to my face because I've got to check the latest social media of something, right? What we need to do is put that phone away at least 30 minutes before you go to bed. And we need to get those screens off. That's going to promote higher quality sleep because for most of us, you know, like we mentioned earlier, you're getting pulled, you're getting, you know, you've got different people tugging at you. You've got priorities. You've got things that you've got to do. You're not going to get 7 to 8 hours every single night. That's life, right? So we have to maximize what we have. So if you can get, you know, 5 to 6 hours of quality sleep over the long run and make that a priority every night, you're going to get a lot of benefit out of that. You're going to recover better. You're going to feel better. You're going to snack less. That's a big one. You're going to crave junk food less. There are some loose studies suggesting that we snack less, we're more well rested. And quality sleep plays a crucial role in that. So that's step 1. We've got to fix your sleep. We've got to work on the quality. So not only do I recommend putting the phone down 30 minutes completely before you go to bed, okay? And that's hard. Don't misunderstand. It's hard. Also, we want to try to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. Not 5 days out of the week, every day. The weekends are still real days too. And we don't want to have to get up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. or even earlier, Monday through Friday, and sleep till 11 on Saturday and Sunday. That just screws you up, right? So that's step one. Step two, this goes more into kind of the nutrition realm. So we've nailed the sleep, right? And when I say nailed the sleep, we've gone maybe 2 weeks where you've made it a priority. It's starting to become a habit. And that's what we're doing. We got it nailed down. Now, if it takes you a month, if it takes you 6 months, that's totally fine. It's okay because you're still creating the habit. All right. So the time frame is not that important. The creating the habit, that's the important part. Number two is water, hydration. That is step two after sleep. In a perfect world, you're taking your body weight, dividing it by 2, and that's how many ounces you're drinking every day. So easy math, you weigh 200 pounds, drink 100 ounces of water. If you weigh 100 pounds, you're drinking 50 ounces of water. For most people, we are grossly dehydrated. And it shows up a lot when you crave junk food, you crave salty food, you've got to have the chips. A lot of times that feeling of hunger, and you know this, the feeling of hunger is actually dehydration. We need to drink more water. So the first step with number two is to do an assessment of where you are right now. Because if you're only drinking 10 ounces of water a day and you go to 100 ounces, we don't want to do that, right? You're not going to get any work done. You're going to be in the bathroom all day. So don't do that. Don't do that. But you do want to slowly titrate that up, right? So again, we're looking at over the course of 2 weeks to a month to 6 months, which is totally fine. You're slowly bumping that up, having an extra glass here, extra glass there. Trick that I do is in the morning, I love coffee, drink coffee, I love it, big fan. Before I have coffee, I'll have at least 24 ounces of water. And I set my cup right next to my coffee pot. So the coffee pot brews automatically. I come downstairs, I grab the coffee for my wife and I, but I drink that water first. And it's a habit. I don't even have to think about it. I just do it. So it's an easy 24 ounces every day before my day even starts. You're going to feel better if you drink more water. And that's just a given. So we're tackling sleep first, and then we go to the hydration. Those are the two most important. Okay. Number three.
Can I throw in a funny story that ties into both of those?
Yeah.
So I took on the 75 hard challenge quite some time ago, obviously, as you're aware. And for the listener out there, if you're not aware of the 75 hard, 75 days straight of, I think it's like half dozen tasks. I can't remember now. 245 more workouts a day, progress pick, no alcohol, follow a meal plan, 245, read 10 pages, and a few tasks. And of course, the water challenge was a gallon of water a day, which it's a boatload, right?
Yeah.
But you got to get it done. So tying sleep and water together, I found myself from time to time, late in the evening, still into the water challenge. And you know where this is going. So then, I wake up at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, needing to use the washroom because I've had down to half a gallon of water since supper time. And then, of course, my sleep gets impacted. And I tell you so this is my point to the listener there. From a performance standpoint, my day was shot because my workout in the morning was garbage. My decision-making ability was garbage. My ability to regulate my emotions and keep calm for my team was toast because I didn't, get my normal routine amount of sleep. So, but I tell you, you're 100% right. My recovery was phenomenal. Like I was doing 2 workouts a day for 75 days, and yeah, I was tired and sore. But since coming off of that and realizing I'm not drinking nearly as much anymore, my recovery is suffering. And so it's like a kick in my butt now to get back into draining the water, which now I at work and everyone makes fun of me, but I literally have a half-gallon jug that I have at work that my goal every day is to drop one of those every day.
Absolutely.
And Chris is holding up his half.
I've got one of those
Nalgene
jug bottles. It's 64 ounces. And that's a really good point. That's a really good point because you find that just like in business, just like in our corporate worlds or careers, if we don't plan appropriately, something is going to throw us a curveball somewhere, and our performance is going to be impacted. So it's really funny how everything from a health and wellness standpoint that I'm talking about, you can relate back to your work, your leadership environment. You can tie all of these things together because they tie together seamlessly. But to Scott's point, that's why you very, very slowly increase your water intake, and you have to do an assessment first. Do that assessment, take a couple of days.
Definitely don't go to 0 to a gallon.
Please don't. I don't want the hate mail. Please. That would not be good. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. But tied very closely to that is number 3. Number 3 is protein. So most of us, again, just like with water, just like with hydration, most people do not eat enough protein in their diet. And that's just kind of a broad brush. But if you look at the standard diet that most of us eat, I say most of us, but most people eat, it is very low in protein. If you go out to a restaurant, look at everything that they offer you, it's mostly fats and carbohydrates. Not that there's anything wrong with either of those, but what happens is you overconsume those 2 macronutrients and your protein's not very high. So once you have your sleep and your water, and those have become habits, then we move to the protein. And when it comes to protein, the first question I always hear is how much? How much protein do I need to eat? And most research currently suggests that more is better, but for most people who are exercising, who are resistance training, doing some cardiovascular exercise, 0.7 grams per pound that you weigh, all the way up to 1 gram per pound that you weigh of your target body weight is ideal. So that would be 1.4, maybe 1.4 to 1.6 grams per kilogram, all the way up to 2.2 grams per kilogram of target body weight. And that would be a good place to be. And here's the end result of that, right? If you fill up and you're eating all of that protein, whatever protein that might be, maybe it's fish, maybe it's chicken or tofu, eggs, dairy, protein powders, whatever that might be, you're gonna find, and Scott, you may get attest to this, it's really hard to overeat on protein. It is very, very difficult to overeat on protein. If you look at all of,
100%.
I mean,
it's crazy.
Yeah. Look at all the food that is delicious, like the cookies and the pastries and the biscuits. They're all so carbohydrate and fat loaded. But at the same time, they're very easy to over consume. Before you know it, you've doubled how many calories you need a day and you haven't eaten any protein. So, how do we do this? Just like with the water, okay? You've got to take an assessment of where you are in the protein spectrum. So, there are a variety of apps out there to download to track how much protein you're eating, but you need to get an assessment. We've got to have that data so we can see where we're going. So we find that data point, we see how much you're consuming, then we discover, all right, I can add an ounce or a gram or, a kilogram, if you want to go that much, of food, of protein to a meal. And you do that once or twice a day, and you can see that really will bump up your protein intake. But that would be the third out of 6 total steps that I would take to get you into that health and wellness mindset, to get you on the road to where you need to be. And then when we're talking about, we're talking about.
So we're. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying when we were talking about protein, we were talking about recovery earlier. We're talking about hydration. This feeds right into it as well. Most people notice when they increase how much protein they're taking in, all of a sudden they start feeling better. They start looking better. Their mind starts performing better as well as their body. There's all sorts of benefits to increasing your protein intake. Now, again, we're not talking about getting up on stage for a bodybuilding competition, nothing like that. But, if you want to, you may need to eat a little bit more. But at the same time, we're not necessarily going down that road. We're looking at the health benefits of increasing your protein.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's probably a big point, big thing to point out is what you're talking about is that this is for the average everyday person, right? You're not talking about stuff for the bodybuilder, the gym rat, and all this stuff. We're talking about, me, you, the working professional that's there. And these things are all crucially important. Sleep is crucially important. Water intake is crucially important. And eating healthy and including enough protein, crucially important. So that's what I like about it. And I like how throughout this you need a start point. You need to understand where you're at. And I talk about this with leaders all the time. You need to know where you are so you can determine how you're going to get to where you want to be. And you've literally mentioned that 3 times with sleep, with water, and with protein. So love it.
What's the old saying? I mean,
Now,
you can't manage what you can't measure.
That's right.
So we've got to have something to measure. Right.
So, no, for sure. So now for the leaders out there, what are some practical tips you got for them to, start, basically incorporating this into their daily lives? You already talked a little bit about one, figuring out where you're at in order, to go where you want to be. But how can we make it a bit easier in our daily lives? Because again, as we talked about, we have, people pulling on us, we have children pulling on us, spouses pulling on us, and all of a sudden we're trying to incorporate all these new, it actually instill all these new habits and routines into our daily lives. So what's some tips you got out there for them?
Sure. So number one is going back to what we said earlier, realizing you don't have to do it all. So if one of these 3 tips really resonated with you, these habits, let's pick one. Pick one and let's really try to nail it. So if it's sleep, what I would do is take your phone, like I said, and make it a habit. Every night, 30 minutes before bed, it goes off. You can even set an alarm or set a do not disturb on it, put it to sleep. So you have to actually input your code. Another trick, if you really want to really go all in on this, put the do not disturb on with a passcode, and then get a friend or a spouse or your kids, if you have kids, to set the code. So you don't know the code. And then tell them to not tell you what the code is. So it goes off, you're not tempted at all. And obviously if there's an important call or something like that, sure, you're going to get it, but you don't remove the temptation. If it's water, one extra glass before you have your coffee or your tea or your energy drink in the morning. One extra glass. That's it. If it's protein, increase your serving size by just a little bit. Those are the real small tips, strategies that we can do throughout the day. But it goes back to that first statement. Pick one. I cannot overemphasize that. Pick one to do first. And realize, look, if we've got 7 days in a week, right? If you nail it 3 of those days, guess what? You're in the Hall of Fame if you're a baseball player, right? That's a pretty good average. So we can't beat ourselves up, especially if it's new and you're trying. Because a lot of times what happens is we try to do everything at once. We try to be perfect. We miss it one time, and then bam, it's gone. It just explodes, and we beat ourselves up, and we go all the way back to the beginning. You know what? I'm never doing this again. And the cycle repeats itself. That's why we pick one. Pick one thing. One thing that you're going to do. You're going to get it at least 3 days out of the week. I think you can do more, but you're going to try it every single day. You're not going to add the second one until you're comfortable and you're hitting that first one all the time. And that's the other component. We tend to add things too quickly. Think about it this way. Think about, I like to use my children as an example on this. My 2 oldest play the piano. My youngest is about to start learning. And instead of practicing for hours 1 day a week, they'll go sit at the piano for 10 minutes every day, just 10 minutes. And now they can sit down and play just about anything on the piano. Now, I don't think they're going to make playing the piano a career. That's not my point. But my point is they're practicing a tiny bit every single day, and it compounds over time. You get better. That's what leads to mastery. So I don't know. I kind of went off on a tangent a little bit. I don't know if that's exactly what you were asking, but so many times I get.
No, it's awesome. I really love the whole how to beat the all or nothing mindset, right? Because that's what you're talking about. Is
100%.
the all or nothing mindset that so many people have, that culture we have in this day and age. And this is how you do it. You're like, okay, I messed up today. No big deal. I'll pick it up tomorrow. Oh, I don't have the 45 minutes it's going to take to do my full workout today. Okay, you know what? I'm going to pick the lift that I like the most, or the aspect I like the most. Or if I'm really like in for the challenge, the one I'm weakest at, work on that, and then the rest of it, maybe I'll pick it up later, or maybe I won't. But it's okay because that's today and I got tomorrow. And you just keep working towards that and figuring out, okay, but allowing yourself, one, the grace to move forward, but two, what I always say is you got to learn from your mistakes. So if it's some kind of mistake that caused you not to have the time to do your full workout, then what was it? Learn from it so you can mitigate it down the line. But you got to be at that point where you can, get past that all or nothing mindset. And you just talked about that. Awesome.
Yeah.
It was just
And,
awesome.
and it's not being weak. It's not being easy. It's not about that. It's about progress. And like what you just said, one movement, one exercise, or one something is always better than nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Progress over perfection, because we're just human beings. You know. Uh, I got one last thing I want to hit before we wrap up here. Obviously, this being a leadership show, team leaders are out there. They're in charge of teams. Do you have any tips for the leader out there how to, if the team itself is talking about how to incorporate better health and fitness together as a community, how can the leader help? One, help motivate them, or enable that in their team and get the whole team moving forward.
Absolutely. So that's a really good question. So public recognition is a really, really big thing. Your team likes that. If they're anything like any of the teams that I've worked with, they like public recognition. Hey, Tommy or Sally, y'all, man, you were doing great. Look at everything that you've accomplished and recognizing them in front of everybody. That's a huge thing that you can do from a health and wellness standpoint. I've noticed, man, you're getting so strong. Look at that. You're doing really well. So that's a inside the team atmosphere, you can do that. A couple of other things we've implemented, and this is definitely dependent on the structure of the environment in which you work. Walking meetings, a meeting outside, a meeting where you could have done it over Zoom, but instead you're outside walking. And yes, maybe one person needs to stay behind to take notes and watch it on Zoom while everyone else is walking. There are ways to get around that if you get creative, but something where you're moving while you're meeting. Maybe it's a stand-up meeting. I have a current team that I'm with. We have a standing meeting every week, and it's recurring. But the energy, the positivity within that meeting is higher than any of our other meetings, and I suspect it's because it's a shorter meeting, but it's also because we're standing. We're able to look at each other in the eyes and get our body language moving a little bit too. So changing meetings around, getting people moving, getting people outside, public recognition for doing a good job, maybe doing something as a team with families outside of the work environment, maybe going for a team hike or a team walk, or maybe the team is going to watch an event or something along those lines to create some camaraderie. Because from a mental health standpoint, that is huge. Developing relationships outside of the office, that's a really, really big one. Those are some of the ones that I would explore, because I think those come before mandating exercise or putting a gym in the facility everybody always wants, but not everybody always goes to. I would look at it from the mental health standpoint first before the physical standpoint. And then the other thing you can do, honestly, is simply survey your team. Send them an anonymous survey that they can respond to. Offer them some choices. Would you like gift cards or public recognition or T-shirts? Not that you're going to be able to do it all, but maybe based on their answers, you respond by doing one thing that the majority asked for. They're going to feel so validated. They're going to feel like, oh, my leader actually listened to us. We wanted that. They did it. So then we look at mental health, and that improves that as well.
Love it, brother. I absolutely love it. There's so much good in there, like especially the walking meetings. Like, wow. The one thing I would throw probably in there to add is, when we do Zoom meetings, or for me it's Teams, whatever the platform is, Google Meet, have at it. There's 50 million of them. Normalize the ability for someone to be on a treadmill walking.
Yes.
Right. I've done that in the past with my own, on the treadmill or on our spin bike. I just like propped the laptop up and just got my legs moving because I was tired of just standing there or sitting all day in my desk. And it's like a meeting where it's mainly me just on receive, just getting information. I had the ability to, stop quickly, take some notes if I needed to, and then carry on. And I think if we normalize that from a remote standpoint, that would benefit everyone out there for sure. But I like the walking ones, the standing meetings, and and actually a random benefit to standing meetings is that they generally go faster.
Absolutely. That's a really nice
because people, because yeah, they generally go faster. So if you got someone out there who generally brings up random points that not really pertinent to the meeting, and you just want them to shut up, well, if you have a standing meeting, they generally go faster because people don't talk so much. But if you're trying to have a meeting where you want people to be open and stuff like that, then maybe a standing meeting is not the best type. Anyway, I digress. Chris, my man, this has been fantastic. I don't know why it took me so long to get you on here, but nonetheless, home run. Before we wrap up, I got a couple quick last questions for you. First one being the question I asked all the guests here at the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast. According to you, Chris Gooden, what makes a great leader?
The ability to ask questions with no ego and no expectation of an answer. I think, and
that's a new one. I really like it, but it's a new one.
I'll expand it on it just a little bit. I think a lot of times we ask questions already knowing or wanting a certain answer. And when you're able to separate yourself from that and be open and vulnerable.
Wow, absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And then follow question of the show: how can people find you, follow you, be part of your journey, maybe reach out to you, become a client? By the way, I definitely vouch for them. So shameless plug, Chris. It's all about you now, brother.
Absolutely. Thanks. Scott, this has been awesome. I'm Chris Gooden Fitness everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, even TikTok. Finally gotten into that. ChrisGoodenFitness@gmail.com, ChrisGoodenFitness.com. That's where I am everywhere. I'm on YouTube as well. Any questions? I'm always happy to help.
And for you, the listeners, always, it's easy. Just go to leaddon'tboss.com/235, and the links are in the show notes. Chris, buddy, thanks for coming out here today.
It's been my pleasure. Have a great night.
And that's a wrap for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast. But you know what you could do to truly support the podcast? And no, that's not leaving a rating and review. It's simply helping a friend. And that is helping a friend by sharing this episode with them if you think this would resonate with them and help them elevate their performance level, whether that's within themselves, their teams, or their organization. So do that. Help me, help a friend. Win-win all around. And hey, you look like a great friend at the same time. So just hit that little share button on your app, and then feel free to fire this episode to anyone that you feel would benefit from it. Finally, there's always more. There's always more lessons around being the highest performing leader that you can possibly be, whether that's for yourself, your team, or your organization. So why don't you subscribe? Subscribe to the show via movingforwardleadership.com/subscribe. And until next time, lead, don't boss, and thanks for coming out. Take care now.